recorded. Um, so we can post our video to the social media for those who cannot make it to come today. And this workshop is hosted by one of our professional mental health team members at MAHA, Midwest Asian Health Association. And my name is Eileen. I'm the program coordinator here. For those who are not quite familiar with MAHA, we are a nonprofit mental health organization located in Chinatown area in Chicago. And we work pretty closely with the CDPH, the Chicago Department of Public Health, to provide mental health service, and also like some educational workshops, activities, and resources to the community. And we also have several government-granted programs like immunization, substance prevention, suicide prevention, and like trauma-informed care programs. And so, well, during the pandemic, most of our programs pretty much switching to virtual, and we're still trying to offer a monthly based workshop like this one open to the public, and to be able to help our audience to receive some more skills on mindfulness practice and self-care, which is very important, and also like some stress management, and help them to focus on the present moment. So yeah, if you ever find it interesting and maybe find some benefits from our workshop today, please don't hesitate to reach out. Without further ado, I hope everyone enjoy our lecture and find some peaceful and relaxing moment with us. And please feel free to ask questions in the chat. And yeah, we'll get back to you once we see it. So yeah, now let me welcome our mental health clinical intern, Faye, to guide you to the mindfulness practice.
Thank you, Eileen, for the introduction and helping me make arrangements for the meeting. Can you hear me? Oh yeah, okay. So I know it's been a tough year for every one of us. And I'm well aware that we have a lot of worries and anxiety in terms of COVID-19 and other crises in our lives right now. So the purpose of this workshop is to help us get familiar with mindfulness and how it can help us cope with crises like COVID-19, and how to live a meaningful life even though in the face of so many challenges. Feel free to use the chat function, and Eileen, would you please monitor chat for me? Thank you.
Sure, of course.
Here is the outline of things that we're going to be exploring today. We'll talk about what is mindfulness, why is it important, an application of mindfulness, how to practice mindfulness, and how mindfulness can help us during COVID-19. Before we get started, I'd like to invite you to do a brief dropping anchor exercise. Notice your thoughts and feelings. Notice what your mind is doing and what you're feeling in your body. Just acknowledge they're present. Now come back into your body. Put your feet into the floor. Straighten up your back. Take a breath. Get control of your arms and legs. Move them around. Now expand your awareness to the world outside you. Open your eyes and ears. Look around. What can you see and hear and touch and taste and smell? And consider, where do you need to put your attention right now to make the most of this moment? Now let's get started. First, I'm going to show you an animation about what mindfulness means and how it works.
You may have heard this word mindfulness. It's become something of a buzz phrase of late. So I'm going to give you one simple, serviceable definition, which is this. Mindfulness is the ability to know what's happening in your head at any given moment without getting carried away by it. Imagine how useful this could be. Just as an example, you're driving down the road and somebody cuts you off in traffic. How do you normally react? I think most of us, we normally react by having a thought, which is, I'm pissed. And then what happens next? You immediately, habitually, reflexively inhabit that thought. You actually become pissed. There's no buffer between the stimulus and your reaction. With just a little bit of mindfulness, in that same situation, you might notice my chest is buzzing, my ears are turning red, I'm having a starburst of self-righteous thoughts, I'm getting angry. But you don't necessarily have to act on it and chase that person down the road, screaming at them with your kids in the back of the car thinking you've gone nuts. Now, you might be thinking, don't I need to get angry sometimes? Aren't I justified? I would say yes, but probably not as much as you think. The proposition here is not that you should be rendered by mindfulness into some lifeless, non-judgmental blob. The proposition is that you should learn how to respond wisely to things that happen to you, rather than just reacting blindly. And that, my friends, is a superpower. How do you get it? The way to get it is through meditation. I believe that meditation and mindfulness are the next big public health revolution. In the 1940s, if you told somebody you were going running, they would have said, who's chasing you? But then what happened next? The scientists swooped in, they showed that physical exercise is really good for you, and now all of us do it, and if we don't, we feel guilty about it. And that's where I think we're headed with mindfulness and meditation. It's going to join the pantheon of no-brainers like brushing your teeth, eating well, and taking the meds your doctor prescribed for you. Let me just close by saying, mindfulness is not going to solve all of your problems. It's not going to render your life a nonstop parade of unicorns and rainbows. Nonetheless, this is a superpower, and one that is accessible by you immediately.
I hope now you get a general idea of what mindfulness and why it is important. And we're going to explore this in depth. Here is a definition of mindfulness given by Jon Kabat-Zinn. He's widely recognized as one of the foremost teachers of mindfulness and one of the people who really bridged mindfulness from the East to the West. He created mindfulness-based stress reduction, which is the first treatment to use mindfulness. He was viewed as one of the major players in the mindfulness field. His definition of mindfulness is the most often used. He defines mindfulness as paying attention in a particular way, which is on purpose, in the present moment, and non-judgmentally. You'll note that the definition is quite narrow. It doesn't include a lot of things. The only things that includes is paying attention on purpose. So choosing to paying attention in the present moment, not caught up in the past or future, and non-judgmentally. That is what we're going to do when we practice mindfulness. Jon Kabat-Zinn also shares a funny story about his friend Jack Kornfield, who's also a major player in the mindfulness field. Jack has studied contented individuals among us who don't struggle with thoughts and emotions and who are at peace. And he provides this advice. If you can sit quietly after difficult news, if in financial downturns you remain perfectly calm, if you can see your neighbors travel to fantastic places without a twinge of jealousy, if you can happily eat whatever is put on your plate, you can fall asleep after a day of running around without a drink or a pill, if you can always find contentment just where you are, you're probably a dog. That is just a funny way to say that all of us get caught up in a daily hustle and bustle of life and general stressors. And it's difficult to be in the present moment. So that is what mindfulness is helping us to do, is become more comfortable with whatever the present moment is offering us. It is important to know that mindfulness that we use is largely associated with Buddhism and Hinduism traditions. Like I said, John Kabat-Zinn is viewed as a major bridge from Eastern to Western culture. He spent time in India studying meditation and mindfulness and brought it back to the United States and created mindfulness-based stress reduction in 1979. And it's worth noting that mindfulness is not really meditation. Mindfulness was an on-purpose choice. The word is a choice made by early clinicians in the field who felt that meditation was too religious-based, as almost all major religious tradition would recognize meditation as some piece of their work. Mindfulness is a very specific choice to use, and the two terms are relatively interchangeable in terms of what is actually done. But it's worth noting that mindfulness is a quality while meditation is a practice. Meditation is a practice, and through this practice, we can develop different qualities, including mindfulness. So mindfulness describes a specific way of living that can be cultivated through practice. And there is a category of meditative practice called mindfulness meditation, which help us live and act with mindfulness. But there are many other categories of meditation, of which mindfulness meditation is only one. So why do we practice mindfulness? The fish helps me demonstrate why mindfulness is useful in our life. If you consider this fish swimming around in the tank, it is not aware of the water that it is swimming in. It is not swimming around like, oh, how fresh the water is, how fresh the air is, or I wish someone would change my water. It is just swimming around and swimming around. And it is how we are with our thoughts. Our thoughts and emotions are so ubiquitous, and we're always stalking our thoughts all the time. We're not even notice their thoughts and emotions. So instead of having the thought that I'm worthless, it's just I'm worthless. It became the truth, and it's exactly what I believe. And instead of feeling angry, I'm just angry. So those thoughts are repeated so many times that it's just becomes the background noise. And we need to see the water for the water, see the air for the air, and stop drowning in our thoughts and emotions. So in order to see the water around us, with mindfulness, we practice by observing your mind at work instead of arguing or buying into what it says. And we see thoughts and emotions and reactions for what they are, and not what they say they are. So it is what it is, and it's nothing more and nothing less. And here is what mindfulness looks like. If we practice mindfulness, we choose an anchor. An anchor is a reference for our attention, the thing we return back to over and over again. So in this slide, I've chosen a candle as an anchor. And the process of mindfulness is not like you sit and you focus in a straight arrow. Instead, what happens is that you sit and you put your attention to the candle and you think about like what you're gonna have for dinner. And then you wonder if you've got enough bread to store. And then you realize suddenly you're not thinking about the candle. And then you return to the candle And a few seconds later, you may think, but I'm really hungry and I wish I can think about dinner, and then, oh, back to the candle. Notice and return, notice and return, notice and return. That is what mindfulness is. Just pay attention on purpose. Stay in the present moment, not caught up in the thoughts in the past or the future, without judgment. It's not like, stop thinking about dinner, that's so stupid. It's not like that. Just it's just like, oh, I'm thinking about dinner. Oh, I need to go back to the candle. Just notice, return, notice, return. That's all mindfulness is in this context. And the reason why mindfulness is about noticing when we are caught up in our thoughts and feelings, why it's about noticing, returning is because we are practicing controlling our attention. When we practice controlling our attention, we are practicing being able to notice when we have an opportunity to make a decision about our actions. Notice an opportunity to live by our values, make our own choices. It is never about controlling our thoughts. It's about controlling our attention. And another important part of mindfulness is that it's not about relaxation. I know this is a major hang-up for probably all of us. Mindfulness has really been touted as this way to relax more. Many of the apps that are pro mindfulness are all about how to relax and things like that. Again, it's not a part of the definition of mindfulness. It can be relaxation can be a bonus, but it's not the purpose of mindfulness practice. Mindfulness is about differentiating ourselves from our thoughts and emotions, and not about relaxation. And also, the mindfulness practice is also helps us make new neural pathways. When we practice new behaviors over and over again, there is strong synaptic connection that's made in our brain. So when we practice mindfulness, we are actually making our brain change. How do we practice mindfulness? It's pretty simple. The first thing you're gonna do is to select an anchor for attending. So initially, I suggest picking an emotionally benign anchor that is not going to create additional stress. And the anchor becomes a frame of reference for our experience. And you will want to set a timer and begin practicing for 5 minutes. And you can increase minutes as the practice of mindfulness becomes more familiar. And when you get caught up in your thoughts, like I said, when you get caught up in thoughts, noises, body sensations, and whatever, just notice and return to the anchor. You will do this over and over again. You might get distracted 1,000 times in 5 minutes. And if you come back in 1,001, that is exactly what you're supposed to be doing. It's about noticing and coming back. Here is just recommended how to start a mindfulness activity. I'll lead a mindfulness activity in a minute, and you'll see how I follow this closely. Just be aware of this when we practice, and you'll see how these words come to life. So it's time to have an activity. This time, I'm gonna choose the fingertip pressure as an anchor. Just push fingertips of both hands together, like the man in the picture. and focus on that pressure. Sit up with your feet on the floor and clear everything off your laps and orient attention to the fingertip pressure. Let's start by taking a few deep breaths in and out. Feel free to either close your eyes or keep them open and focus on a spot right in front of you. Please bring your attention to the fingertip pressure. You may have distractions such as thoughts, outside noises, or body sensations. When you notice these distractions, return your attention to the fingertip pressure over and over again. We'll do this for the next few minutes, and I'll let us know when we are done. Please take 2 more breaths in and out, and then bring your attention back to the group. So, how can we tell if we are doing mindfulness right? After doing the practice, we can reflect and ask ourselves a few questions. How do you feel? Did you stick to the anchor? If your mind wandered from the anchor, were you able to bring it back? Did you judge yourself? What were you thinking? So, as long as you can bring your attention back to the anchor over and over again, then you just did it right. And it's important to remember the 3 most important principles when we practice mindfulness. That is, mindfulness is just about coming back over and over and over. And it's about learning to tolerate distress and the present moment. And it's not about relaxation. Here are some resources that we can access if we want to practice mindfulness in our daily life. Here are some podcasts you can listen to and some apps you can use to guide your daily mindfulness practice. Before we move on, any questions and comments and thoughts? Okay, so I know many of our folks are interested in how we can cope with COVID-19 by utilizing mindfulness in our lives. And I'm going to show you a set of practical steps for responding effectively to the corona crisis using the principles of a mindfulness-based therapy, the acceptance and commitment therapy. Here is a quick summary of the key steps, and we'll explore them all in more depth. First is focus on what's in your control. I know the corona crisis can affect us in many different ways, physically, emotionally, economically, socially, and psychologically. And when we are facing such crisis, fear and anxiety are inevitable. It's too easy to get lost in those fear and anxiety, and it's too easy to worry and ruminate about all sorts of things that are out of our control. Things might happen in the future, how long it takes to go back to normal, etc., etc. And while it's completely natural for us to get lost in those worries, it's not useful or helpful. So you can control what happens in the future, and you can control coronavirus itself or the world economy or how the government manages this pandemic. And you can control your feelings. But you can control what you do here and now, and that matters. And acknowledge your feelings and thoughts. So many of us tend to avoid and want to eliminate our unwanted thoughts or negative feelings when they arise. But actually, it's important to silently and kindly acknowledge whatever is showing up inside you, the thoughts, the feelings, emotions, and memories. Just take a step back and observe what's going on in your inner world, like curious scientist. It's helpful to put these emotions and feelings and thoughts into words and say to yourself something like, I am noticing anxiety, or here is grief, or there is my mind worrying, or I'm having a feeling of sadness, or I'm having thoughts about getting sick. Stay in the present moment. To get it an important way to cope with the crisis is to get a sense of where you are and refocus your attention on the activity you're doing. You can find your own way of doing this, and you can also try some or all of the following suggestions, like look around a room and notice 5 things you can see, or notice 3 or 4 things you can hear. Notice what you can smell or taste or sense in your nose and mouth. Or notice what you're doing. And you can end an exercise by giving your full attention to the task or activity at hand. Opening up. Opening up means making room for difficult feelings and being kind to yourself. So difficult feelings come up as this crisis unfolds. Fear, anxiety, anger, sadness, etc. So we can't stop them from arising. their normal actions, but we can open up and make room for them, acknowledge they're normal, allow them to be there even though they hurt, and treat ourselves kindly. And remember, self-kindness is essential if you want to cope with well in this crisis, especially if you are in a caregiver role. If you need to look after others, you'll do it a lot better if you're also taking good care of yourself. So you can ask yourself, if someone I loved was feeling what I'm feeling, if I wanted to be kind and caring towards them, how would I treat them? Then try treating yourself the same way. Values. This is my favorite concept in acceptance and commitment therapy. Our core values can guide us to live a valued, meaningful life. But how can we clarify our values? Just ask yourself, what do you want to stand for in the face of this pandemic? What sort of person do you want to be as you go through this? How do you want to treat yourself and others? Your values may include love, respect, humor, patience, courage, honesty, caring, openness, kindness. Just let them guide and motivate your committed action. Look for ways to sprinkle these values into your daily life. Of course, I know there are all sorts of obstacles in your life at this time, at this moment. There are goals you can't achieve, things you can't do, problems for which there are no simple solutions to. But you can still live your values in different ways, even in the face of all those challenges. For example, if your value is kindness and caring, just consider these questions. What are kind, caring ways you can treat yourself as you go through this? And what are kind words you can say to yourself, kind deeds you can do for yourself? What are kind ways you can treat others who are suffering? And what are kind, caring ways of contributing to the well-being of your community? What can you say and do that will enable you to look back in years to come and feel proud of your response? Committed action. Committed action means effective action guided by your core values. Actions you take because it is truly important to you. Actions you take even if it brings up difficult thoughts and feelings. Like I said, just consider these questions. What are simple ways to look after yourself and those you live with? And if your values are kindness and caring, what kind, caring, supportive deeds you can do? Can you say some kind word to someone in distress, in person or via a phone call or text message? Can you help someone out with the task or chore or cook a meal? Can you comfort and soothe someone who is sick? And if you're spending a lot of time at home through self-isolation, quarantine, or social distancing, what are the most effective ways to spend that time? You may want to consider physical exercise to stay fit, cooking healthy food, and doing meaningful activities by yourself or with others. And if you are familiar with acceptance and commitment therapy or other mindfulness-based approaches, how can you actively practice some of those mindfulness skills? Repeatedly throughout the day, ask yourself, what can I do right now? No matter how small it may be, what can I do to improve life for myself or others I live with or people in my community? And whatever that answer is, just do it and engage in it fully. That pretty much is it. Any questions, thoughts, and comments?
Thanks, everyone. Great job, Faye.
Thank you, Eileen.
Yeah, does anyone have any questions or comments for Faye or for me regarding our overall programs? So for next month, instead of a mindfulness focused workshop, we will be also offering an art response workshop that is also open to the public and probably around the mid of February. And there will be a little activity conducted during the workshop to engage everyone, hopefully in receiving some self-care and some strength from the visual imagery. And yeah, there's also be an maybe 10 minutes short film played during the workshop, FYI. So again, please don't hesitate to reach out if you're interested. And I'll be sending out an announcement when it gets closer to that week.
Thank you. Thank you, Faye. Great job.
Thank you. Thank you for coming.
I feel much calmer. Yeah, thank you. It works.
Otherwise than that, thanks very much for everyone's coming, and yeah,
Thank you.
for participation today.
Yeah, thank you very much. Very nice job.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, bye.
See you.
Hi, everyone.
See you.
Take care.
Great job, Faye.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for helping me
Enjoyed it.
arranging this.
Yeah, you did awesome. I'm wondering probably for the next meeting of your check-in, I can jump in and share some ideas that Jonas and I discussed about the art response
Uh,
for next.
can you stop the recording now?
Oh shoot, I'm sorry. Yeah, I'll stop it.